The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
I can tell you that Lauren Boebert just had one of the most humiliating days of her entire life. And given what we know about old Lauren, we know that she's had a ton of those humiliating days. But yesterday, it was reported that despite her sobbing and begging and crying, she and her husband got evicted in absolutely hilarious fashion. She and her husband got booted out onto the street because no one wants to have them in their property anymore. Lauren, for so long, before she got into politics, what she was known for was basically being someone that got arrested now and then and running a small business. So her whole idea was, I'm a small business owner. But just yesterday, her identity as a small business owner got slashed because she and her husband got evicted from the property. I want to read you some reporting highlighting how Boebert was sort of desperate to hide this, but also stop it from happening. Understanding the fact that while Boebert was losing a lot of money in this venture, at least she did for a long period of its opening, she didn't want to lose this because it was central to her really pathetic identity. It says here, as readers know, Shooter's Grill lost hundreds of thousands of dollars during its first few years of operation, according to tax filing, and the eatery never lived down the 2017 incident in which Boebert's food truck sickened dozens of spectators at a local rodeo. Quality food and service was never the draw of Shooter's Grill, of course, bringing in customers at least once for the novelty with their armed and generally young female staff. Boebert reportedly waited until after the June 28th primary to make the decision about closing the grill after the building's landlord signaled the intention to cancel Boebert's lease at the end of August. With Boebert's primary opponent dispatched, Boebert's cash flow from her newfound fame looked secure enough to dispense with the dirty work of running a small-town greasy spoon management, of which Boebert had reportedly already farmed out to political supporters. So guys, right now, it sounds almost like Boebert is relieved to be out of this mess, but that's not quite the case. I do think in some ways, maybe this is good news for Boebert, because at her restaurant, it's always been a source of scandal, whether tax scandals, labor scandals, political scandals, all of that. Maybe it's actually better for Boebert, but that doesn't explain the fact that she was reduced to begging. She went begging and pleading and crying, please don't evict me, please don't cancel my lease. And now she's even trying to fight, saying, oh, we technically weren't evicted, we were just not renewed, it's very different. Boebert is humiliated by this. It says, after running her restaurant for years, Representative Lauren Boebert's Shooter's Grill officially closed Wednesday after she couldn't secure a lease. In June, Boebert was told by her new landlord that her lease wouldn't be renewed. She soon called to beg, but there really wasn't much wiggle room or anywhere to compromise unless we bought the building ourselves. She claimed she wasn't being evicted. Quote, the lease isn't being renewed. That's a big difference. As of Wednesday, Shooter's Grill had a chalk sign in the doorway saying, thanks for your support. Stay tuned, Kafifi. The hashtag was an accidental tweet Trump made that's been ridiculed for years. She's trying to make a little joke. Boebert says maybe we're going to open up a food truck. Hopefully not a food truck that makes people sick. But the point is, guys, this eviction is totally delicious. Not the food. The food, from what I've heard, not delicious. The eviction, very delicious. Because again, Boebert has nothing now. Yeah, she's a congresswoman, but her entire identity was like a lady who got arrested for being rowdy sometimes. I guess she has this identity as being a disingenuous good wife and mother, and also being a small business owner. And now she's lost that. She tried to hide this for as long as she could because it was damaging to her politics and to her ego. But we all know now, Boebert and her husband's eviction, yet another black mark.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. It's been a bipolar day here in Maine, as it usually is. We started off with gloom and doom and thunderstorms, you know, and powerful rain. Now the sun's coming out. You know? It's no wonder so many people in this state are, you know, are under mental health care. You know, Maine people are very, very unusual, and for a good reason. You know, it's because we're as moody as our weather here. You know, it kind of reminds me of this. What happened here, you know, like years ago. I had gone over to, with my father, over to his friend's place out on Pushaw Lake. His friend, his name was Cliff Deeringer, and they used to had a camp out there, and it was like the 3-floor camp, okay? And we went out there, go fishing, you know, and he had a huge boat. We went fishing. Well, while we was fishing, we could hear this chainsaw out in the woods, and in the distance you could see like a haze of like blue smoke. And my father had said, whatever that guy's cutting, he ain't cutting, I'll tell you, because that wouldn't be doing that if he was cutting with the right chain. And of course I was like, yeah, I don't know what the hell he was trying to cut, but he was out there. And so we were still fishing, and the chainsaw would stop, then it would start up, and then it would stop, and then it started up, you know, and I'm like, you know, God, it said is the thing even cutting at all, because it sounds like he hasn't moved so the whole time he's been out there cutting. So when we came back to the pier, we went out towards, which wasn't just like maybe like 500 feet down from the dirt road where the guy was doing the chainsaw, and Cliff knew him, and so we went over there, and the guy was down there, you know, with his chain, and he had that what do they call that, to sharpen the damn chain up. He was over there grinding that, trying to sharpen the blade. And my father goes, what the hell are you trying to cut down there? And the guy says, oh, I got this great big, there's a tree that fell down in the woods, and I'm trying to cut a huge big slab of it because he wanted to make a table out of it, which is something a lot of people around here do. If there's like a stump or something like that, they'll try and cut like maybe that much off of the top, and then they'll turn around and they'll, you know, varnish it and everything and make a table, put legs on it. And sometimes they sell these things and they go for big money. But he was down there trying to cut that, you know, and my father says, geez, that's a big oak tree that was there. And he goes, yeah, it's been there a long time, but my wife thought we could make a tabletop using that, so I went down there to cut it. And it just wasn't getting into He goes, well, let me see your chain. So my father looked at the blade on the end of it, and apparently he was using a chain that's designed to cut pine and not oak. And that was the reason why the chain wasn't going through it. And he says, well, you got the wrong kind of chain on there. He goes, you got to get yourself a chain for cutting oak tree, you know, because that's harder wood than pine. And the guy goes, I didn't know that. He says, yeah, you can't, you got to get a different chain. So, my God, it was like the fog in the woods. It's like, Jesus, he was smoking up the whole damn neighborhood. And the guy thought his chain was dull or something, and that's why he was down there sharpening it. But all along he was using the wrong kind of chain. But I thought that was funny anyway, just to hear that guy grinding. Oh boy. So yeah, that was a moment to remember, you know. And anyway, today was a day that I saw coming, more or less, where this fellow here in Ohio had raped a 10-year-old girl, and he raped her twice. And his name was Gerson Fuentes. And of course the president came out and commented on this issue, and he was really upset about it, saying, you know, here's a girl, and of course she's pregnant with this guy's baby here. And let me just read the Reuters article about it. Reuters. entitled Ohio Man Charged with Raping 10-Year-Old Who Later Crossed State Lines for an Abortion. It's written by Joseph Axe. An Ohio man has been charged with raping a 10-year-old girl who later traveled to neighboring Indiana for an abortion, a case that President Biden highlighted in criticizing a U.S. Supreme Court decision eliminating a nationwide right to abortion. Fuentes, who was 27 years old, who was arrested on Tuesday, appeared in Franklin County, Ohio Municipal Court for an arraignment on Wednesday. A police investigator testified at the hearing that Fuentes confessed to raping the girl at least twice. The victim in the case underwent an abortion in neighboring Indiana on June the 30th, the officer testified. A statewide ban on abortions in Ohio after the 6th week of pregnancy, before many women are aware they are pregnant, went into effect just hours after the Supreme Court's June 24th ruling that struck down Roe v. Wade, the 1973 decision that had established a constitutional right to abortion. The incident gained attention this month when the Indianapolis Star newspaper reported she had to travel to Indiana to secure an abortion because she was 3 days past Ohio's 6-week limit, which does not include exceptions for rape or incest. Abortions after 6 weeks remain legal in Indiana, though the Republican-controlled state legislature is expected to consider new restrictions later this month. Biden, a Democrat, spoke of the girl in remarks to reporters about abortion access. Quote, "Just imagine being that little girl, 10 years old," unquote, he said angrily at the White House on Friday. Fuentes is being held on $2 million bond and is scheduled for a preliminary hearing on July the 22nd. A court-appointed defense attorney for Fuentes did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In all 26 U.S. states have either severely restricted abortions in the wake of the ruling or are expected to do so in the coming weeks and months ahead. Some conservatives had questioned the veracity of the Indianapolis Star story. Yeah, they were on TV saying it was a lie, that this was all a big hoax, right? Okay. Republican Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost told the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau on Tuesday that the details were, quote, more likely than not a fabrication, unquote, because there had been no arrest and no evidence uncovered, Ohio's Columbus Dispatch reported. But in a statement on Wednesday after the arrest, Yost, who defended the state's 6-week ban in state court after the Supreme Court decision, said, quote, "My heart aches for the pain suffered by this young child. I am grateful for the diligent work of the Columbus Police Department in securing a confession and getting a rapist off the street." Yeah, you know, the thing here was that Fox News and all these other Republican pundits out there were sitting here screaming that this was a hoax, that it was all a Democrat thing that they're trying to stir up to, you know, to attack what the Supreme Court had done, okay? I mean, they swore up and down about that. And then when it came out, what happens? They shift the narrative. They dodged it and they said, oh, well, if this guy, Fuentes, was an illegal immigrant, if he hadn't been here, it wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? So instead of bitching about, you know, the abortion, now they're complaining about immigration. Okay? So this is my theory, okay? Now, there's no fact here to back up what I'm going to say, all right? But this is my theory. The Republicans coming out this way and saying that it's a hoax and everything makes me wonder if they didn't have people on the ground looking for this guy and this girl and trying to hush them up, you know, trying to do something to shut them up so that way they don't talk to the press, that this wouldn't get out, okay, that there would be no details about this. Because why would they say that this was a lie if they knew that police were going to find these people eventually, that was going to find this fucker, okay? Why would they go out there and say it's a lie, okay? Why would they want to put egg on their face again? Now, some people say, well, they're stupid, okay? Well, yeah, they're stupid, but they're stupid like a fox, okay? The thing is, these people, I think, got on the air and said what they said, thinking that somebody was going to get this guy and shut him up before he said anything, you know, because that's what I'm thinking. I mean, why would they get on the air like they did and question the veracity of this story? All right, when they know goddamn well that they don't have any idea if it's true or false, and if it is true, they're gonna look like idiots again. You know, why would they do that? Well, now that the cat's out of the bag and they know it's the truth, now they can't defend themselves because they had a thing here. Let me see if I can open that up here. Come on, goddamn thing. Okay, so today, this is an article from Huffington Post, written by Jennifer Bendery, entitled, "An abortion is not an abortion if a 10-year-old gets one, says anti-abortion leader." Okay, now listen to this article. In a truly bizarre exchange during a House Judiciary Committee hearing on Thursday, today, the leader of a national anti-abortion organization claimed that it, quote, would not be an abortion, unquote, if a 10-year-old rape victim got pregnant and had an abortion. Catherine Glenn Foster, the president and CEO of Americans United for Life, was responding to questions from Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California, about whether she thinks a 10-year-old girl would or should choose to have a baby. After some back and forth during which Foster refused to answer the question, she came up with a response. Quote, "I believe it would probably impact her life, and so therefore it would fall under any exception and would not be an abortion," unquote, said Foster. Quote unquote, "Wait," replied Swalwell, puzzled. Quote, "It would not be an abortion if a 10-year-old with her parents made the decision not to have a baby that was the result of a rape," unquote. Quote, "If a 10-year-old became pregnant as a result of rape and it was threatening her life, then that's not an abortion," unquote, Foster said. Quote, "So it would not fall under any abortion restriction in our nation," unquote. And they got a video here of the back and forth. The Americans United for Life president appeared to be trying to redefine abortion to avoid saying that, yes, of course a 10-year-old rape victim should be allowed to have an abortion. It's not even a hypothetical scenario. Earlier this month, a 10-year-old girl who had just been raped, which the last article here I read to you, after Foster made her bonkers claim, Swalwell turned to another committee witness, Sarah Warbelow, legal director for the Human Rights Campaign. Quote, "Miss Warbelow, are you familiar with disinformation?" unquote, he asked. Quote, "Yes, I am," unquote, said Warbelow. Quote, "Did you just hear some disinformation?" unquote, asked Swalwell. Quote, "Yes, I heard some very significant disinformation," unquote, Warbelow replied, offering an actual definition of what an abortion is. Quote, "An abortion is a procedure. It's a medical procedure that individuals undergo for a wide range of circumstances, including because they have been sexually assaulted, raped, in the case of this 10-year-old girl," unquote, she said. Quote, "It doesn't matter whether or not there is a statutory exemption, it is still a medical procedure that is understood to be an abortion," unquote. In the case of the 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio, Warbelow added that there is no exception in Ohio state law that allows abortions when the life or the health of the pregnant person is at risk. Quote, "That's why that 10-year-old had to cross state lines in order to receive an abortion," unquote, she said. Swalwell later called out Foster on Twitter and spelled out why she had such a hard time answering his question. Quote, "MAGA GOP doesn't want you to know their abortion laws force pregnancies on little girls," unquote, he said. So yeah, you know, like I said, they can't defend this story here that what's happened. They got somebody on the floor trying to redefine what an abortion is just so they can avoid saying the truth. Jesus. You know, that's why that happened. Okay? You see, when your position is so shaky, okay, that when you're under questioning about it, you can't answer the question because you're afraid of what you might say, then your position really isn't that strong, is it? I mean, her position that this 10-year-old girl having an abortion, but not calling it an abortion just so she can protect, pro-life people, okay, it put her in a corner really quick, very quick. It put her in a corner, and that goes to show you just how weak their position is on how they stand on this issue. You know, I'm sure that the majority of women in this country can see how stupid and dangerous it would be to force little girls like that to have pregnancies and not have them, do the right thing, especially in cases of rape and incest, all right, which happen a lot of time. I mean, how many rapes they say happen in a day in this country? It's a staggering number, okay? So this is a problem that's going to keep happening. And I said, weeks back about how there's going to be a martyr one of these days that's going to undo everything the Supreme Court just did, okay? There's going to be a case that's going to come out that's going to really piss off the country. And the Republicans are not going to be able to block this tsunami of hate that's going to come their way from this. There's going to be a case now that's going to happen, and it's going to really turn heads. Okay, and the Supreme Court isn't going to be able to stop it either, okay, because the people are just not going to have it, okay. When they leave this way it is right now, I guarantee you, within, I'm not even going to say a year, it's going to be a short time later, there's going to be a case that's going to present itself in front of America, and we're going to see just how ridiculous the Supreme Court was and what they was talking about banning, the abortions not being a protected right here in this country, okay? We're going to see just how ridiculous that is, and how much more damage that these situations will cause because they can't get they can't get the abortion they need, all right? This girl had to go to another state to try to get one done. She's 10 years old, for Christ's sake. A little girl like that, I mean, Christ, it's the damage. I can't even imagine how much damage mentally, physically that's going to cause her if she has that child, okay? And this guy, this friggin' animal that raped her twice, not once but twice, raped her, okay? How many more men are out there right now doing exactly the same thing? Remember all those cases where we find women locked up in the basement for years in some old pervert's house, and then somehow they find out there's a bunch of girls down there? Don't you think there's going to be a case like that that's going to come out where all these girls were pregnant or something, and then the state they're living in says, well, they got to all have their babies, okay, and they're all like little kids? Somewhere in this country that is going on right now. I know for damn sure that is, because it's happened too many times already. And you mean to tell me the Republicans are going to defend that sick bastard? Oh man, come on. Honestly, do you really think this is going to last, this position that the Supreme Court has taken? I really don't see that this is going to last. I really don't. I think that the ludicrousness of what they've done, what they set up in this country, is going to become, undeniably fake. It's not fake, but false, okay? It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be obvious to the dumbest person on earth that was the wrong decision for them to make. We got to undo it, okay? And it ain't going to matter if the Republicans are control of the Supreme Court or not, okay? They're going to do a go around from the Supreme Court, and they're just going to go right over their heads and codify Roe versus Wade, okay? This is what's going to push the codification of that, over the top. Is enough of these cases coming out in front of people, and the Democrats are going to make sure that people are made aware of this as it happens all the time, okay? This isn't gun control, okay? This is a whole different matter. This is not about taking people's guns away, okay? On that regard, the Republicans can argue till the cows come home about their definition of the Second Amendment. But when you're talking about a person's body, the privacy of their body, and how they can do what they want, okay, that's different, because now you're talking about, little girls, being pregnant, rape victims, incest victims. I mean, you've got all these crimes that's just going to blanket over. You can't possibly do that. It's like having no background checks with guns. I mean, that's basically like that. Having no background checks, and it doesn't matter if you have a criminal record, you'll get your gun. Doesn't matter if you have a problem, mental health problem, you'll get your gun. That's what this is. That's what this blanket thing that the Supreme Court did, is going to do to the issue of abortion. It's just going to say no more people having abortions, period, for whatever fucking reason you could come up with. No, okay? That's because Republicans like black and white answers to all problems in this world. They don't believe in the shade of gray. It's either yes or no with them, and that's what makes them a dangerous cult in this country. That's what makes them very stupid and unyielding, and that's also what makes them unable to defend their positions when they're confronted by what if. Okay, what are the shades of gray? How does your stance hold up to that? Okay, do you feel comfortable allowing a 10-year-old girl to have an abortion? Okay, do you really want to do that if it was your daughter that was 10 years old, and was raped by a guy, for multiple times and got pregnant? Would you allow that? Would you say it was, no, you can't have an abortion, you're going to have that baby? Are you going to say that to your 10-year-old daughter? I mean, how sick of a person are you if you're going to do that? That's what these people need to understand. If you don't want this person, this little girl, to have an abortion, okay, then what's your other answer to how you want to deal with this problem? I mean, because, hey, you can blow the guy away, lock him up forever, but your girl is still damaged. She's still damaged. Okay? Are you gonna raise that kid? Or, I mean, what are you gonna do? I don't understand how these people can sit there and take the side of a rapist. All right? What is it with these people anyway? I mean, do they get certain sick pleasure out of making people suffer in this country by making little kids suffer? I mean, we know pedophilia is something that party is always bouncing around in all the time. So maybe it's some kind of sick perversion they get out of making kids suffer, no matter how young they are. I don't know, but it certainly isn't a party that cares a whole lot about people, and they're supposed to be, quote unquote, the party of morality. They haven't been that in as long as I can remember. Okay, they don't give two shits about fucking morality. All that cloak and dagger crap about being, in the Christian right and all that stuff. Fuck that. They ain't Christian nothing. Okay, they're nothing. They don't believe in a goddamn thing. They're worse than Satan himself. Okay, that party. Those people there could care less. And like I said, they caught this woman here in a corner. She couldn't defend herself, and they made a fool out of her. Okay. And the other people in the right wing are dodging the issue. They don't want to talk about it, so they're going after the guy that raped her and say, oh, well, if there wasn't any immigration problem in this country, this wouldn't have happened. Oh yeah, let's blame it on that, okay? Let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
This is the best opportunity to prosecute Trump. The best chance to actually prosecute Trump is and has always been the Georgia case. In the Georgia case, there is a 1 hour plus tape of Trump breaking federal and state laws.
He's on tape.
And it's him directly.
He broke the law.
Not people on his behalf. Trump is on that tape breaking federal and state laws.
We can't let him get away with this.
Okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? You've been struck by the smooth criminal. Dun 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 dun. Oh! Dun 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 dun.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
We've heard a lot from Marjorie Taylor Greene about gender, January 6th, or the vaccine. And now she's got a podcast on which she connects the dots. So we'll know what's really true and all her deepest thoughts about evil liberal plots to make us fry a fake cheeseburger by the old peach tree. Or she says Bill Gates will start zapping me if we don't follow orders. His gazpacho police will come in and snoop, examine our poop till we do what they wish, and fry a fake cheeseburger from that peach tree dish. We laughed out loud when we saw her tweets about Jewish space lasers and martial law. She's not just dumb, she's dangerous. Of course we can't forget. But it's hard to resist mocking her craziest comments yet. And there's worse to come, I bet. Fry a fake cheeseburger by the old peach tree. Or she says Bill Gates will start zapping me if we don't follow orders. His gazpacho police will come in and snoop, examine our poop till we do what they wish, and fry a fake cheeseburger from that peach tree dish. Incoherent and sure can't spell, harasses colleagues and students as well. A transphobic provocateur, can't believe a thing you hear from her. Now the whole darn internet is jeering at her latest gibberish, with 1,000 memes and jokes about that peach tree dish. Incoherent and sure can't spell, harasses colleagues and students as well. A transphobic provocateur, can't believe a thing you hear from her. Incoherent and sure can't spell, harasses colleagues and students as well. A transphobic provocateur, can't believe a thing you hear from her. Incoherent and sure can't spell.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show.
I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
a day here for some more shocking Republican actions. Okay, and here's another one. Today, this is from The Root, written by Morjani Rawls. House Republicans vote against tackling white supremacy in military and law enforcement. The House passed an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act to push government officials to report instances of white supremacy among the military and law enforcement ranks, The Hill reports. Representative Brad Schneider, Democrat from Illinois, sponsored measure made it through with a 218 to 208 party line vote that saw every House Republican vote against it. 20% of participants arrested for involvement in the January 6 Capitol riot are military veterans. A Reuters investigation also found a high number of police instructors have ties to right-wing militias and white supremacist hate groups. This amendment would require the FBI Director, Department of Homeland Security, and the Secretary of Defense to publish a report analyzing white supremacists and neo-Nazi activity within their ranks and present ways to root it out of the respective organizations. It also calls for a number count of people who were discharged due to white supremacist activity and requires the government to create a report showing ways how to combat neo-Nazism within these career choices. There will be a 180-day deadline for this to be completed and submitted to congressional committees. Unclassified portions would also be made public. Representative Schneider spoke about the increase in domestic terrorism in the U.S. and how this resolution will be one way to see how bad it is. Representative Andy Biggs, Republican from Arizona, known for his election meddling efforts, and one of the 23 Republicans who voted against an anti-bigotry resolution in 2019, claimed the measure denigrates law enforcement personnel. Quote, "This amendment attempts to create a problem where none exists by requesting investigations into law enforcement and the armed services for alleged rampant white supremacists or white national sympathies," unquote, he said. Representative Liz Cheney, Republican, Wyoming, currently on the January 6 House Select Committee, also voted against the amendment, despite everything she's seen in the investigation. After the full NDAA passes this week, the House and Senate will conference at that point. This resolution can still be taken out. So here, the Republicans, true to form, okay, and still shocking to people, they don't want anybody looking around for, racists inside the military or the police department. Now, we've had a lot of issues about cops that are racist, killing black people or beating the shit out of them and stuff like that, okay? Don't you think something like this would help? I mean, it passed, but it passed on the skin of its teeth by, 10 votes? The vote was down party line. So every single Republican, including the illustrious Liz Cheney, who's sitting on a fucking committee that talks about these white supremacist fucks, okay? She's sitting on a panel like this, and she even votes against it. She's nobody's baby here, people, okay? I know there's a lot of Democrats that are hailing her as, they forget, this woman was also against abortion, okay? She's just as right-wing as the worst of them all. And she supported Trump. As crazy as he was, she was in his fucking pocket. No. Cheney is nobody's fucking baby here, okay? She's like her father. She's two-faced, and she's always got a plan within a plan. She's doing this only to boost herself politically. That's all this is for, okay? I can't imagine how she can go there to this hearing and do say what she's saying about Trump and all that. It must be more difficult for her than, taking a piss out in public, Christ. But this is sick. This is what our government is now. Because Republicans and Democrats are so separate from each other, so divided, that the country's so divided, that even on something that makes sense, a common sense bill that would do good, okay, the vote goes down party lines. Okay, you can't tell me there wasn't a single Republican in there that would have loved to vote the other way, but is afraid to because they don't want to be split from the party. Okay, there's no such thing as votes that are always split down party lines. Okay, that right there is a sign that our government is not functioning. Okay, when you can't even gather up, a handful of Republicans to agree with you, or gather up a handful of Democrats to agree with the Republicans, then you know that the bill was not honestly looked at and voted on. It was just if the Democrats are proposing it, vote no. If the Republicans are proposing it, vote no. That's all it is. That's all it is there. Okay? That's all our government is now, is this tit for tat. Okay? And I hate votes like that because it doesn't legitimize anything that gets accepted, because of the numbers. It doesn't tell people that this vote was necessary, that this is an issue that needs to happen, okay? That if you don't see support like that across party lines over things like this, then what are people going to think? Well, they didn't need that bill. This was just something the Democrats did, or this is just something the Republicans. You know what I'm saying? It goes right back down to people dividing themselves up again. When people see votes like that, it divides the country further, because they'll always look at this as just another swing, another punch at the other side. Okay, they won't look at these bills for what they are and what good they're trying to do. You see, people watch, our politicians perform. Okay, and if people are so smart enough to see a play on a football field and to see what they're doing, goddamn well they're looking at this and they're making judgments about what they're seeing play out in the Senate, in the Congress, in the White House. Okay, that. And oftentimes it leads to wrong conclusions, but people are still invested into figuring out what's going on. So people watch these things, on TV, they have these debates and stuff on the House floor and they air it on the television. People are watching these things, okay? And when they have the vote and they see it goes down party lines, well, then you can't, because you're either a Democrat or a Republican, you're not allowed to say, well, maybe there was some need for it or something. You can't think outside the party line, basically. Everybody's mind is being programmed to think either right or left. Nobody's allowed to stand in the middle of the road and say, well, maybe we can do this and that, make some compromise here. Nobody wants to compromise. That includes the public, okay? Because they see the politicians not compromising, the public won't compromise. All right, and that's what's creating the divide, or at least making it worse in America, is because of these kind of votes here. Now, even though it passed, that's fine. I mean, I'm glad it passed, but I just don't like the way it passed. I don't like the way the vote came down on party lines, okay? Because that doesn't legitimize, in my view or in my opinion, to the public that this vote was an important vote, and that it needed to happen so we can fix a problem in this country, which does exist. I mean, we see it on the news. I mean, people can't deny that. We see, cops beating up on black people all the time, or getting rough with, Latinos, and you know what I'm saying? Mass killings, stuff like that. Okay, we know there is a problem here. We know there's a problem here. And the problem also in the military, but the military is pretty good at keeping the problems internalized, so we don't really hear much about it. But I know the problem exists there, all right? But the thing is like I said, the Republicans and the Democrats having this free-for-all here with each other divides the country. Depending on what kind of person you are, you're either going to take the side of the left or the side of the right. But nobody's allowed to stand in the middle of the field, and have, a slightly different look on it, or, you know what I'm saying? Just to be able to suggest that, we need to have this done, okay? And instead of the two sides trying to come together here and sit down and talk about this problem, and then lay out, well, here's some examples of why we're doing this. We've had all these crimes happen with the cops and doing that, and of course the military submits, the issues they've had in their service, people being discriminated against and stuff like that because the somebody who is involved with the American Nazi Party or what have you, okay, if they can't come together and discuss this as politicians are supposed to do, and understand, well, we have to have some kind of vote here on this, and they have the vote, and you see that, hey, it's not all Republicans went against it. There were some that actually went with the Democrats on this because they saw that there was a need for it, okay? But the idea that the Republicans were unable to, because they're afraid of bucking their own party, the system's broken. And we know why that's happened. It's the money, goddamn money. They don't want to lose their funding for the races, they're going to have to come up to at some point, and they're going to have to run. So money in politics, people, this is what it's done to politics. And it didn't take very long after Citizens United for the problem with money in politics to escalate to where it is today. Okay, it happened practically overnight. And that right there was a big fucking mistake. Okay, corporations are not people. They aren't, they never were. Okay, corporations are just entities that people work in. Okay, but the company name itself is not a person. It doesn't have a fucking vote or a say in anything. Only the people working in it have all their votes and individual votes. Okay, I mean, does Walmart have to go get an abortion when it gets pregnant? I mean, does it? You know what I'm saying? You can't consider a corporation to be a person, but because it is in this country, they're able to dump as much fucking money on somebody as they want. No limit. Big problem. And finally, there's this article here from Business Insider. It's entitled, Fiona Hill Says Trump's Election Lies Have Created a Recipe for Communal Violence That Could Foster Civil Conflicts in the United States. Written by John Haltwanger. This is published today. America is historically divided. Trust in key institutions has tanked. Millions of people still don't believe President Biden won the 2020 election fair and square. And former President Trump and his Republican allies continue to push lies on 2020 as they simultaneously vie to whitewash the deadly riot at the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021. Quote, "We're in a mess," unquote, Russia expert Fiona Hill said in a conversation with Insider on Wednesday that focused heavily on the state of the U.S. democracy. Hill, who served as the top Russia advisor on the National Security Council under Trump administration, warned that the distrust in the electoral process fomented by Trump and those close to him has created a, quote, recipe for communal violence, unquote. The U.S. could ultimately, quote, end up in a civil conflict, unquote, she added. Quote, "Some people have said that might have been our last fair election in 2020, and it's disastrous because that means that a portion of the population will always believe that whoever gets elected is illegitimate," unquote, Hill said. The U.S. has reached a point where, quote, "trust in the different communities and authorities," unquote, has broken down to quote, "such an extent that people just start fighting with each other," unquote, Hill said. Some academics have contended that the U.S. is already experiencing a slow-moving civil war or is heading toward insurgency, the 21st century version of a civil war. When asked if she agreed, Hill said, quote, "I've said that myself at times, and I've dialed it back a bit. We've got a lot of communal violence, so we're already kind of in that. But we may have just become ungovernable by many of the things that have happened here," unquote. Quote, "I don't think we'd end up in a kind of conflict that we had between the states, the Union, and the Confederacy back in the day," unquote, Hill said, quote, "but people's sense of the civil and civic ways of resolving disputes are out of the window," unquote. When people are storming the Capitol, staging armed protests at state capitals, plotting to take governors hostage, and engaging in targeted mass violence, including racially motivated violence like the recent shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, it's a sign that your country is in, quote, really big trouble, unquote, Hill said. Quote, "However you define it, you're in big trouble," unquote, when there's, quote, "this whole atmosphere where everyone's on edge and feeling that they need to resolve the disputes themselves, unquote, she added. Hill, who also wrote a book on Russian President Vladimir Putin, is seriously concerned that the U.S. could be moving toward autocracy. She saw firsthand how Trump sought to emulate autocratic leaders like Putin. In her 2021 memoir, quote, "There is nothing for you here, finding opportunity in the 21st century," unquote, Hill wrote that Trump, quote, "may have paved the way for another less personally insecure and more capable populist president, someone who actually did his or her homework and was skilled in project management to pull a Putin in America," unquote. Hill said the Russian president, quote, "took the Constitution's presidential powers and ran with them," unquote, and also, quote, "enhanced them to the point of extending his own term in office essentially indefinitely," unquote, warning that it could also happen in the United States. Asked if she was still worried that someone could pull a Putin in the U.S. and move it toward autocracy, Hill told Insider, quote, "I'm very concerned about it," unquote. Many Republicans continue to run for office, quote, on the back of the lie that the January 6th committee has really tried very hard to refute, unquote, or the false notion that the election was stolen from Trump, Hill said. Some of the people who will run for the GOP nomination in 2024, including those who could potentially beat Trump if he chooses to make another bid for the White House, have, quote, "not refuted what he said and never recognized Biden as a legitimate president," unquote, she said. "It would be disastrous if Trump runs and wins again, quote, on that basis," unquote, and equally as bad if another Republican candidate who, quote, "helped enable this or perpetuate it and is tapping into it," unquote, Hill warned. "The GOP today is not the Republican Party of old," Hill said, stating that it has all the hallmarks of authoritarianism. Quote, "I am not a partisan person, but it's a little bit hard to take a neutral stance," unquote, Hill said, noting that people in the UK have described the Republican Party to her as, quote, "a charismatic satanic death cult," unquote. "The Democratic Party is not unworthy of criticism," Hill said, "but it's also not, quote, trying to undermine the overall democratic system," unquote. Well, right now, it has to be said that the Republican Party, the Congressional Republican Party, so it seems, so it would appear, is hell-bent on undermining democracy to exert minority rule, unquote, she added. Hill, who was pushed into the national spotlight as a key witness during the House impeachment inquiry into Trump's dealings with Ukraine, said she's been closely following the hearings held by the House Select Committee investigating January the 6th. She said the committee has made a compelling case so far. Quote, "But it doesn't mean that everybody else is watching and is being persuaded," unquote. Quote, "We've become so polarized and partisan," unquote. To reverse course, Hill said everybody needs to stand up and work at strengthening America's democracy. Quote, "Everybody's individually got to think about what can they do in this moment and really look at things long and hard about the kind of country that they want to live in," unquote, Hill said. So, yeah, she's basically laying out a path our country's heading down right now by looking at other countries and seeing how what happened to them led to wars, internal wars and conflicts and stuff like that, okay? And she's seeing a pattern here in the United States replaying itself. And she's worried that it's going to lead to some kind of a war in this country, civil or otherwise. It may not look like the Civil War of old, but it could be a different kind of civil war where people are just simply going after leadership in violent ways, okay, and going after people that don't agree with them. Okay, it could mean, you know, person-to-person shooting, you know, or, you know, basically anarchy, if you want to call it, where if your next-door neighbor knows you're a Democrat and he's a Republican, he might try to sabotage your vehicle or blow it up or something, you know what I'm saying? Terrorist acts. Because that's kind of the way the thinking is right now, is that people today don't want to discuss in a civilized fashion things that are important in this country. They don't want to be around people that don't agree with them. And at the same time, if they find out that you're a member of the opposition, they'll just assume shoot you as look at you. Okay? And if it wasn't for people being in mass together at protests and stuff, I believe things would have already come to that point already. But it's very hard to start a fight when you got, 100 people on one side and 100 people on the other, okay, because when it comes to that, who's going to win? And so far we've seen how the right wing likes to bring weapons to these goddamn rallies and shit. So yes, there is a problem building here in this country, and it's not going to have a happy conclusion. And unfortunately, her solution on how to deal with this is not strong enough. Okay, I'm sorry, but in order for people to, what does she say, individually think about what they can do, and you're asking people to just stop the way they're behaving and sit down and suddenly find reason inside their mind and decide, okay, well, we can't do this. No, people aren't thinking like that. It's all about people acting off emotion, because it's emotion that's driving these people out there to be violent. Okay, if there was any rationality or any reason in their thinking, they wouldn't have gotten to that point in the first place, right? You look at how people, have riled up the Republican Party, like Donald Trump. The way he's out there, angering people by saying they took your vote away, they stole the election, you people don't matter. They're targeting your emotion. They're not targeting your thought of reasoning. Okay, they're deliberately targeting your anger and trying to build it up. So all they got to do is snap their finger, and they're out on the Capitol walls trying to bash vice presidents and senators and whoever the hell else is in their fucking way. All right. Why did they bring a guillotine during that goddamn January 6th riot? Why were they bringing that? Apparently that was supposed to be used for the vice president if they ever got their hands on him. They were going to put him in that damn thing and chop his fucking head off. Does that sound like people that are capable of sitting where she's doing, reason this thing out? No. So the only answer here, people, is to create the very thing that most Americans don't want to see happen in this country, and that's create a police state. Okay, you'd have to create a police state, which the military would have to be patrolling our streets every fucking day, up and down, along with the police, and the police and the military would have to be equally armed to the teeth. Okay, and the minute something gets out of hand, it's instant jail right off the bat. No argument, no nothing. Okay, your rights would have to be curtailed. Some of them would have to be gone. Okay. So that way, people would smarten up and they'd be jolted back to reality. That's what you'd have to do, okay? You'd have to do that. That's the only logical step, is you'd have to turn the government on itself, okay? That's how you'd stop this. But to ask people to sit down and reason this out so that way you realize you're doing the wrong thing, yeah, in the land of Oz, maybe that would work, but not in the land of the reality. And in reality, this is only going to end one way, and that's going to be gun violence like you have never, ever seen. You think the school killings and all that were bad? You ain't seen nothing yet, what's coming down the road. It's going to be more than that. It's going to be people against people. It's going to force everybody to arm. There ain't enough cops in the world to be able to protect everybody now. Okay? You're going to have 380 million people in the United States armed to the teeth because they're too afraid of each other. The guy next to them could be a Republican. The guy next to him could be a Democrat. You don't even want to go to a fucking movie theater because you go in there, could end in a bloodbath in the fucking theater before the movie starts after the commercials. I mean, what the hell do you think is going to become of this country? You won't even be able to go to church. Okay? If you're a Democrat sitting in church with a bunch of Republicans, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to grab you by the throat and throw you out the fucking door. Okay? I mean, that's what you're looking at. That's what we are looking at right now for a future in America. Okay? That's where we're headed. And that's what she's trying to say. But she doesn't want to say what needs to be said at the end of this report, which which people are going to say, oh my God, can't be that bad. People don't ever like to hear the truth. Okay? They don't ever like to hear somebody tell them what needs to happen in order for a problem to correct itself. What happens is people have to come to that answer on their own after the problem has snapped. Okay, after things have happened, it's got to go on and on and on until finally people are beaten down and decide finally, after how many deaths, that yes, we're going to have to do this and that, and people aren't going to like it, but it has to be done. we have a problem here. We can't waffle on this anymore. It's a job that has to be done. Otherwise, we're just never going to have a safe country, you know. And people are going to end up leaving this country, you know, by the time it gets there. But for those of us, you know, who don't have the money to just pack up all our belongings and go to Canada, we're going to be stuck here in the crossfire. You know, and we're not going to be very happy. I mean, gated communities, they won't even be safe unless you pass a test. You have to agree to certain things. You got to be this kind of person, that, you know, before you can live here, in order to keep people from killing each other. All right, so if you want to live in a certain building, you got to be Democrat, or you got to be Republican. Okay, you got to be single, or you got to be white. You got to be, you know what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen. Everything that this country stood for is going to have to be torn right apart in order to control the population, because the government has destroyed us from within. They've turned us against each other. We're so angry with government. We can't take it out on the government, so we're going to take it out on each other. Anyone that reveals who they vote for is going to get... Voting is going to be, people are going to have to show up wearing a bag over your head or something like that, and never have your identity revealed if you're going to go vote, because you don't know. There's going to be people at the door packing heat. All right. Yeah, it's the rest of the world is right about what our country is. Okay, unfortunately, we don't see it yet because we're on the inside. We're not looking at it from the outside. We don't see what's happening. We're living it. We're the frog being slowly boiled to death, all of us, and that's the problem. All right, so this is it, and everybody have a great upcoming weekend. Hope everybody has some good weather coming your way for, you know, to enjoy the summer while you can.
We just need to forget about everything.
Keep your ears open on COVID-19 news. It's getting worse out there right now. And please subscribe and comment, and I will appreciate any comments you have or anything like that. So I will talk to you again later, so be well, everybody.